Well, after all of the soldering, switch wrangling, case modifications and a few questionable decisions with the rotary tool, it's finally time. Today, the Hackjunk Atom either springs to life or teaches me a valuable lesson in checking transistors. Before we get started, a quick update about Earie's8bit.com, now with added shop. Yes, the website finally has a proper store and it even works. I'm still selling through eBay. If you want a cheaper option, buying direct from me from the site is the way to go. No middleman fees, just me and a plastic crate full of neatly organized PCBs pretending to be an inventory system. You'll also find all the usual bits there: parts lists, schematics, GitHub files, and links to the tools that I use on the bench. Those referral links help support the channel, so if you've wondered what soldering iron is that, now you know where to look. And if you're a maker building retro hardware, expansion, mods, replica boards, or something that really shouldn't work but somehow does, I'd love to hear from you. I'm always looking for interesting projects to feature, and I'm happy to link back to your shop so people know where to find your work. So if you want updates, resources, or a place to grab surplus PCBs before they migrate back into the workshop, head on over to Earie's8bit.com. Welcome back to Earie's 8-Bit Workshop and welcome to episode 5 of the Hackjunk build. This is the grand finale. The machine is fully assembled, the case is complete, and now it's time to bring it to life. We'll flash the EEPROM, attempt the first power on, and finally load some software and play a game or two. The EEPROM can actually hold 2 ROM images, selectable via a jumper. In the default position, we've got a stock Atom. The alternative image lets us use an Atom MC2 card. For now, we'll flash both images so the machine is ready for anything. Think of it as giving an Atom 2 personalities, both of them 8-bit. Okay, everything's connected, 5 volts stable, let's do this. And nothing, not even a flicker, no sync, no noise, no rolling picture. Well, no video output could mean anything, so let's start from basics. Here's VCC, and we have 5 volts. There's a little bit of mains hum, but that looks okay. Then we have the clock, which is running at about 1 megahertz, which is good. And reset, which appears to be working fine. So we'll take a little look at the address bus and data bus. So A11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. And then we've got to go onto the other side, A12, A13, A14, A15, yeah. And then we've got D7, D6, D5, D4, D3, D2, D1, and D0. Okay, so the address bus and data bus is looking good, and we've definitely got activity on there. So it looks like the system is running. Now, there's actually a pretty good way of confirming if it is running or not, and that's to press Ctrl G. But we've got nothing. All right, so it looks like the soldering on the speaker has let go, so let's do a quick repair on that now. And there we go, we have a beep, which tells us that the computer is fundamentally alive. So what we've got is some sort of problem on the video side. So let's start working our way back from the RCA socket to the ICs. Okay, so our video looks pretty dead. Now, the video goes through these resistors and Q1 and Q2, and it's from the 6847. So let's try the last pin in the circuit there then. And that looks, well, apart from a little power hum, it's not too bad. Something has gone wrong from the output of this IC to the RCA. Now, maybe I've left a dry solder joint or put a component the wrong way round. So I'm going to do a little poking around with the scope around that point and maybe remove some of the components and put them back and see if we can get the signal all the way through. And there we go, it's running. It's up and running. And there is our control G. The problem was that I took the transistors out of the wrong section of the box. I took out PNP rather than NPN. So these are supposed to be BC547s, and what I took was S9012s. The BC547s are NPN and the 9012s are PNP, which actually means that I was cancelling out the signal rather than amplifying it or biasing it ready for output. Which means that we now have a working atom. Brilliant! This was nowhere near as frustrating as the TI-9922 build, where we had many incorrect parts. And I learned from that build, and I tested every single part this time, except the transistors. Oh! Alrighty, let's try loading some software. Now, while researching this segment, I was expecting just to download a couple of tape images as tap files, pop them on my TZXDuino, and load them on the Atom. But it seems that although the tape format is recognized by the TZXDuino, the baud rate that the Atom uses is so slow, the TZXDuino just can't talk that slow. So I've had to convert the tap files into UEF and then into WAV files and play them from the laptop. Let's start with Jet Set Willy. Regrettably, there is not a block counter on the Acorn Atom, as there is on tape loading on a Beeb, so we just have to hope it's actually doing something. Also, given the speed of loading is around 30 bytes a second, it is going to take a while. The counter on QuickTime indicates that this is going to take over 20 minutes to load, so while a quick jump cut takes you straight there, I have to go the long way round. Now, the Atom was originally built with a Motorola 6847 video chip. That outputs a 60 Hz NTSC picture, and even though the primary market used a 50 Hz PAL signal, it didn't matter. Firstly, analog tellies back then could fudge a 60 Hz signal by adjusting the vertical hold, and the NTSC versus PAL color signal didn't matter a whole heap because it was a black and white signal. Yes, the Acorn Atom was monochrome. A PAL color board was produced later, but as we have a base Acorn Atom here, our games will be in glorious monochrome. I have to say that Jet Set Willy is pretty responsive. Sound is a little lacking, but it only had a single channel. But this is very playable. Okay, let's play something else. Now, I asked Andy at Hackjunk his favourite game to play to test out systems, and he quite likes Galaforce. So let's load up that next. And while you can benefit from the next jump cut, I'm going to go make a nice cup of tea while I wait for this one to load. Again, I have to say I am really impressed. It seems like it's very responsive on this game, and the graphics, albeit monochrome, are pretty sharp. Nice. Before we wrap up, I want to thank each and every one of you for following this build from start to finish. From soldering resistors to playing games, it's been a pleasure sharing the Hackjunk Acorn Atom journey with you. I also have a quick update note from Andy. I mentioned in the last video that an interactive bomb would be very helpful in putting this system together, and Andy has now published this on his website. It's available just below the schematics. Download the zip file, extract it, open the HTML file in your browser, and then you get an interactive layout that shows you where each component sits. Click on the bomb to highlight the component on the board, or click on the board to take you to the correct bomb line item. Thanks, Andy, that's very helpful. Well, if you've enjoyed this series, please do hit the like and subscribe and leave a comment. And I want to hear from you. What should I build next? A Commodore 64 perhaps, or maybe an Omega MSX? Let me know. Your input could shape the next retro adventure. And remember, computers are just like sandwiches. They work fine until you take the wrong bite. And I'll see you next time on Earie's 8-Bit Workshop. Goodbye.